Peace, y'all. What's good? Welcome to another night at the Green of Thrones. Not just Knicks talk tonight. I want to talk a little Giants. I had to change the cap. So, as we always do, shout out to all my live stream people that are subscribers to the YouTube channel. And if you aren't, if you're a live streamer at the Green of Thrones on Facebook, then make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, GoGoGadget Green. And for all my subscribers on GoGoGadget Green, if you are on Facebook and we are not friends, it's cool. Go ahead and request to join the group, the Green of Thrones NYC Sports. So the Knicks play the Cavs tonight. I think the Knicks are the Knicks, Cavs, and the Phoenix Suns are the three worst teams in the NBA. So they'll all equally have a 14% chance at the number one pick in the draft. So that's that. And obviously, whoever finishes the worst can't get a pick less than five, lower than five. If you have the second worst record, you can't fall lower than 6. And you have the third worst record, you can't fall lower than 7. So the Knicks have won 3 out of 4 games. They beat Atlanta, they beat the Spurs, and they beat the Orlando Magic, and they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves, if I'm not mistaken. So naturally, it's fun to root for the team, but a lot of people are nervous because they're like, you're impacting the draft position in a negative way. If we go on a winning streak to finish the season, right? And we finish with, let's say we finish with the third worst record, and then we end up with the 7th pick in the draft. Everyone's going to attribute that 7th pick in the draft, falling to the 7th pick in the draft with the winning streak. Same thing if you finish with the second worst record. Obviously, if you finish with the worst, you're giving yourself the best case scenario. So, what I wanted to speak to is I don't see how you could expect the coach who is developing talent to not put his players in a position to win. Most of us would probably agree, watching the Knicks all season, that they've played hard. They've played with effort. They've tried to win games. It's usually been one bad quarter. What up, Rob? We talking some Giants tonight. If you're going to stick around, it's been a bad quarter. They're not a good team, right? They're a young team. They have some young players that show a little promise, but they're not a good team, and their record reflects that. But they look like they're trying, and you want people to try. You want people to show up and try to put forth an effort to be better. So I don't think the young players on the court are as enamored with the thought of playing with Zion or RJ Barrett next season, because they want to win a game or two. They want to go home and feel good. And I think when you're the fan of a team in this situation, for me, I'm sitting there, I'm rooting for them to win. When they're in these games and it's close, now I don't get too excited because there hasn't been a lot of winning in these parts over the last couple of years. And in order to maintain my stress levels, I don't get too amped up when things go a little bit good. So some of these games I'm sitting there quiet, but inside I'm hype. And then some of the highlights, Mitchell Robinson with the alley-oops and Kevin Knox driving and dunking, and Trier looking like he's getting back to form. Dennis Smith having 2 dunks that didn't even go down that looked like crazy highlights. So there's exciting things happening. Then they actually won 3 out of 4 games. So that's what I want to see. I'm sorry, the Garden being all hype trying to get a win. This is what I'm saying. Most of those fans that went to that game that night were probably like, yeah, we're tanking for Zion or whatever. But then when you're at that game and your team has a shot to win the game in the closing minutes, and they're playing hard and they're doing smart things and looking like they're improving and developing, which this year is all about, and then they actually secure the win, and you're sitting there, the fans are incensed, and they're yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs, and they're yelling defense. This is not a crowd that wants the team to lose. So, I understand the draft position part of it, but I understand even deeper the players need to establish effort, to establish the want to win, not just collect a check. Not just go, oh yeah, well, the first year I got drafted by the Knicks, and the first year we were there, we were trying to tank, so the coach wasn't really doing much to show us anything. Could you imagine like a rookie coming out of college and feeling that way about the team that drafted him because of a guy they could get next year? So I know that it's extremely risky because of the draft position, but with all the losing that is going on, I love these young guys figuring it out, finding a way to win games. Mitchell Robinson being a factor, like a dominant factor, really changing how the other team runs its offense. I was watching him chase guards around the court. Evan Fournier couldn't get away from him, and he wouldn't dare try to shoot because he knew that left hand was coming. Mitchell Blockinson. Yeah, if we don't find a better name, Mitchell Blockinson. Word. Because, he's chasing guards around. He's blocking jump shots. That's special. What you seeing Mitchell Robinson do is special. And the thing is, we saw it in the summer league, and now he's got, I said this on the show the other day, he's got the NBA players now, quality NBA talent, looking like the talent in the summer league as far as in regards to how he's effective and his impact on the game. He's doing the same things he was doing in summer league, if not better. Small sample, of course, but the fact that he's doing it against top NBA talent is a big difference from doing it in summer league. Robert says, if we get Zion, the draft is rigged. Well, I'm going to tell you how I feel about rigged drafts. I may have accused a draft in the past or two of being rigged. If it's the Knicks' turn, then so be it. Because we paid the dues, right? It ain't like the Knicks have won a whole lot. Most people my age remember an era where we didn't even win a championship. We went to the championship twice. We remember Patrick Ewing and Mason Oak and Starks and Derek Harper. And, even if you go back to Doc Rivers and if you go back before that to Mark Jackson and Rod Strickland and Gerald Wilkins. But that's like, we're tied to that era. If you're older, you can probably go back to the 70s and you saw Walt Clyde Frazier and Willis Reed and Dave DeBusschere and those guys, Bill Bradley. But we're tied to an era where we didn't even win a championship. So if it is rigged and it's set up, then I think it's our time and it's lined up perfectly. Silas, what's good, my brother? Yeah, man. Mitch, Mitch is he's a lot of fun to watch. I said that I think they're gonna beat Cleveland tonight, so they're gonna win 4 out of 5, and people are gonna lose their minds some more about tanking and messing up the draft position. But I'm sorry, you have to coach for what you have right now. The minute the Knicks got all that salary cap, people said, well, there's no guarantee these guys are coming. And I agree. It is no guarantee you're going to get 2 max free agents or even 1 max free agent this summer. So guess what? That means you're bringing back all your talent from the year before. So you don't want to have to start over with these guys. They need to come in knowing what it takes to win. They need to remember that 18-game home losing streak. They need to remember they didn't win back-to-back games since the end of November, first day in December. They need to know that they went on a 3 out of 4 game winning streak after the playoffs when everybody's pretty much written them off after the trade and everything. So, I think it's important because if you whiff, as they say, on free agency in the summer, Kevin Knox, Trier, Mitchell Robinson, Dennis Smith Jr., probably Damian Dotson, Jenkins is his name, Ellenson. If we whiff completely, and all those guys will be back next year, and they'll be back fighting even harder and coming from a place of experience because of how they were coached up in the developmental season. So if you want to say the organization or the coaching staff is tanking, I don't see that in how they're moving with the players. If anything, if people are basing, I've seen people that I respect, their opinions, very much so. They focus on some of how David Fisdale moves and how he coaches. The jury's out on him too. We don't know if he's a good coach. Maybe his moves are not tanking. Maybe he's just not a good coach. And maybe you don't want to believe that. But maybe he, like most coaches, you tend to look better when your talent is better. HBK Fargo was good. That's right. They owe us, man. Moke was good. I always see you peek in and out. I appreciate that. Pause. Emmanuel Moutier. Robert put up Moutier. Moutier is playing extremely well. I talked about this the other day. When he was injured, he was still able to run. So he did a lot of running when he was away from when he was on injured reserve or whatever they call it. And so when he came back, his wind was fine, but he looks good. He's knocking down that little mid-range pull-up. I like that shot from him too because he seems to miss a lot when he's at the basket. He makes some difficult shots too, but I like that little pull-up he's got. He's got good size, and to have a guy like that in a draft pick as a quality backup, that's pretty awesome, but I don't think it's realistic to think that he'd be the backup long term. Because if he continues to play this well and we go with Dennis Smith, which was likely what would happen unless you get Kyrie or some other major free agent at point guard, if Moutier continues to play well, someone will give him a shot to probably run their team, which would make it unlikely that he returns to New York. All right, it's 7:15. We dedicated the first half to the Knicks. And, we can always go back to the Knicks and talk about anything there. I'm not against that. But I did want to talk some Giants. And as you know, the Giants have the sixth pick in the draft. We know that the Jets have the third pick in the draft. And now the chatter is beginning. Now, the Jets and Giants have traded one time in their history, if I'm not mistaken, prior to the draft, traded draft picks or whatever it was. I don't even remember the names or who was part of that deal or whatever, but it was like one time, and I think it was a long time ago. So this is, you're not in a normal territory here with that. If the Giants the Giants are going after a quarterback, right? It's hard to believe. Let's say it like this: if Gettleman sees the quarterback he wants, he's gonna get him. Now, I know Robert in the beginning talked about wanting Russell Wilson. I would absolutely love Russell Wilson, but I'm not going to buy into the rumors. Seattle has one more season with Russell Wilson, and they were saying they don't know if they want to pay him. This is people talking, excuse me. This is people talking, the rumor mill. It's like they don't know if Seattle wants to pay him, would they trade him, and this and that. I can only imagine what it would take to trade for Russell Wilson. But, yeah, imagining Russell Wilson with the Giants at his age to know we'd have our quarterback likely for the next 10 years at least, yeah, that would be awesome. With that said, though, let's talk about the quarterbacks. So we know Haskins is what they say is QB1. He's the main guy everybody's looking at as the first quarterback likely to be drafted. Then you have Kyler Murray, who very similar to Baker Mayfield last year is gaining a lot of ground on Haskins day after day. His combine numbers came out today. For the people that care, he's basically taller than what people thought. He weighs more than what people thought, and his hands are bigger than what people thought. So those key things they were going to use as scapegoats on why he shouldn't be a team like the Giants shouldn't hang their hat on drafting him with the sixth pick. Of course, the Cardinals shouldn't draft him number one with Rosen. Now, we are going to talk more about this. It's going to be an ongoing conversation. The combine's going on this weekend. You're going to have the draft coming up. And the Giants obviously need a quarterback. So we're going to talk a lot about this moving forward. But I'm going to do more homework on Kyler Murray and Haskins so I can talk in more depth about each young man and respond to questions, opinions, and facts about these players. with that said, all I'm hearing about Kyler Murray is how good a football player he is. Yes, and Robert said, and Russell Wilson has Super Bowl experience. So I wanted to acknowledge that before I move on. Yes, we would have a young quarterback for the next 10 years that has Super Bowl experience. Should have 2 Super Bowls, but, not my problem. All I'm hearing about Kyler Murray is that he's the best football player in this draft. Now, I know there's a linebacker. I think his name is Josh Allen, like the quarterback. There's a linebacker, I believe his name is Josh Allen, top talent. And obviously Bosa is probably going to go in the top 2 or 3 picks if no quarterbacks are taken early. But all I'm hearing about Kyler Murray is how great a football player he is and how his size is what was going to prevent him from being a top pick in the draft. Well, now his size issues are ruled out. He's been measured at the combine. Those are no longer issues. So I'm starting to see a picture being painted here, and I'm like, this kid, nothing about his football game is the issue. There's nothing about his football game that is the problem. It's all about his size, his height, his hands, And I'm going, well, now that that's not an issue, where's his draft position going to skyrocket to? And if you're the Cardinals, Stephen A. Smith was talking about this earlier, I don't see how you don't take him number 1 unless you love Josh Rosen. And I don't think they love Josh Rosen. You can make the argument they weren't a good team. They didn't have a good line. But Josh Rosen wasn't he didn't have the accolades that Kyler Murray has coming out of college last year when he came out and when he was drafted by Arizona late in mid-first round or somewhere between, I think he was drafted somewhere between 7th and 10th or 11th, somewhere in there. Give or take a pick on the late side. But I don't see how Kyler Murray doesn't go number 1. If Kyler Murray goes number 1, the Jets are not trading. Now we're going to start swinging this back to the Giants. The Jets are not going to trade the pick at number 3. Obviously, I opened up talking about Jets and Giants potentially trading. Could happen. Argument against it is if Kyler Murray gets drafted number 1 by the Cardinals, that means one of the 2 top defensive players that everybody thought would go number 1 is now falling to number 2. If the 49ers take the defensive guy, which I think I said his name is Josh Allen, at number 2, the Jets are probably taking Bosa without a doubt. No doubt about it. So there's a ripple effect now. Very likely at number 6, a top defensive player falls in the Giants' lap. Now, if the Giants love Haskins, you just take Haskins right there in that spot. Now, the Raiders at 4 are interesting, but I understand their GM has recently come out and given Carr, their starting quarterback, a vote of confidence. So we'll see what happens there. So let's assume that the Raiders are not going to draft a quarterback. And I forget who has the 5th pick right in front of the Giants. But all the teams that need quarterbacks, unless the Cardinals take Kyler Murray, are behind the Giants. So now, if the Cardinals, the other thing is, just in case y'all didn't know, the Cardinals have a new head coach. They just hired this offseason, straight out of college, and there is audio of this coach talking about Kyler Murray when he faced him. And he said, if I was in the NFL, I'm paraphrasing, if I was in the NFL, I had the number 1 pick, I would absolutely draft Kyler Murray with the number 1 pick. Oh, thank you, Robert. The Buccaneers have the pick in front of the Giants. So another team that doesn't need a quarterback if they're going to go with Jameis Winston. So now, back to this scenario. If the Cardinals pass on the QB, I was talking about the coach. So the coach, when he was coaching against Kyler Murray in college, said if I had number 1 pick in the NFL draft this year, I would take Kyler Murray. Lo and behold, here he is now, sitting there, brand new coach of the Cardinals with the number 1 pick in the draft. Is his love affair with Kyler Murray real, or was he just showing praise to his very worthy opponent that he was going to be facing that week in college? Let's say the Cardinals do not draft Kyler Murray. The 49ers have Garoppolo. The Jets have Darnold. The Raiders have Carr. The Bucks have Winston. Potentially, that leaves the Giants at the 6th spot with the option to draft Kyler Murray or Haskins. Now, there are teams, they saying that Nick Foles may end up in Jacksonville. That's a rumor now. So if Nick Foles ends up in Jacksonville, that's another team you do not have to worry about trying to draft a quarterback. Or maybe they will try to move up and draft a young quarterback, but I doubt it. I don't see you signing Nick Foles to a free agent contract and then also using your high draft pick on a quarterback when you want to, obviously the Jaguars kind of imploded last season, but that defense is really good, and if they have decent quarterback play, they could be a threat to at least challenge the Patriots in the playoffs. So here you are, the New York Giants. Robert says, be wary of the Bucks. I agree with that. So that's why I'll call it a big if the Buccaneers decide they're going to just stick with Jameis Winston. But yes, Robert, that is something we should talk more about moving forward. The Buccaneers drafting Haskins or Kyler Murray. What I want to get to before we wrap up, we got about 5 more minutes. If the New York Giants have the opportunity to draft Kyler Murray, if he is not drafted first, do you offer the Jets a haul and move up to the 3rd spot so you don't have to worry about the Oakland Raiders, who John Gruden is in love with Kyler Murray, is my understanding, the Buccaneers, that Rob just said, be wary of the Bucks, which I think is a great warning. Would you trade with the Jets, if the Jets are willing to trade with you, into that 3rd spot so you can get Kyler Murray? Because if what I'm hearing about Kyler Murray is correct, I don't see why the Giants wouldn't draft him. I read an article before I pressed record tonight, and there's a former executive who no longer works. He used to work for Washington and another organization in the NFL, and he said if he was still the GM of an organization, he talked about an interview Kyler Murray gave before he committed to football. So this is when he was still contemplating football and baseball, and he talked about how Kyler Murray's personality is not a grab the room's attention type of personality. They said the interview was kind of cringeworthy, and yeah, he could be trained up, but that would make me raise an eyebrow. It would scare me, because you're going to get a hell of a football player, but he doesn't grab the attention of the room when he walks in. See, this is the kind of madness that I'm like, you're just overthinking it. So you're telling me and this same executive admitted that Kyler Murray might be the best player in this draft, or the best quarterback for sure in this draft. So you would be scared off potentially by how he gave an interview, because you think that interview is how he will reflect in the huddle. And I think that's ridiculous, because if you take somebody out of, he's not an expert in giving interviews. He wasn't comfortable. I don't care what they were talking about. But in that huddle, clearly he's a damn good football player. So if he's a damn good football player, I think it's safe to assume that he has some command over the huddle and enough command to be a successful, very, very successful college football player. I mean, you don't get... One of the comparisons for this kid was that he's a pocket passer first, but he possesses Michael Vick type of athleticism and running ability. Like, what? No. You trade up to get that. You trade up to get that. You cannot, and there's still some things that have to be ironed out. But if this dude is that football player, like you say he is, I'm sorry, you can't overthink it and go another route. Now, if you're sitting at 6 and both these guys are available, I just, no disrespect. And this is, let me be clear, nothing I'm saying here is a knock to Haskins. I am not trying to knock Haskins at all or anything he did. The one thing we do know about Haskins is that he's got 1 year of tape, and it was a damn good year, and it got better as the season went along. So, it's not like he's not a good player, and I would be upset if we ended up with him. But what I do want to end this on in my last minute or two is if Kyler Murray is what everyone says he is, then it's similar to last year when Saquon Barkley, if we were like, if he's what everybody says he is, he's going to do it. And Kyler Murray's a Jersey boy. Rob, hit him. Yo, Rob, this is why we got to do this, bro. You giving me them points. That's what I love. Yo, I just don't see. Brother Oba was good. I don't see how you don't draft the best talent available at the position that you need the most because he's short. Because how's he going to take a pounding? I'm sorry, it's worth it. If he's as good as they say he is, I know I keep repeating myself. I may sound like a broken record, but I really can't say it any other way. I'm going to do some more homework and get deeper knowledge on his skill set. But a mobile quarterback on a team with Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, with a quarterback that can escape. So, and the Giants' offensive line isn't that good, right? We're still working on the line. So you're going to get a guy that can extend the play on his own naturally, but he is actually comfortable in the pocket? Who is that? We haven't seen that. And I'm not going to let 5'10", 207 pounds scare me away. He's flat out a football player. But 7:31, we about to wrap up. Let's go Knicks. I'm predicting they're going to win tonight. It should be 5. What is that? That'll be 4 out of 5 games. They won 3 out of 4. Keep your eyes out on the Giants. We're going to be doing a lot more Giants talk with the Combine this weekend. Be paying a lot of attention to what Shermer and Gettleman are saying. Obviously, we know Eli Manning is back, but the key is who is going to be on the bench behind him and who can apply enough pressure to possibly put Eli on the bench sooner than later. But, go green. If you're on the live stream, subscribe to the YouTube channel, GoGoGadget Green. If you're watching on GoGoGadget Green on YouTube, join us on Facebook at The Green of Thrones NYC Sports. I'm your host, Go Green, and we out. Peace.